What's good, everybody? Welcome to This Is Hip Hop. I'm Dennis. I got some reviews coming. Alright? No, but in all seriousness, I've always wanted to review music. I got some inspirations, but I'm gonna try and do it my way. So, the new Nas album came out, Nasir. We're gonna get into that, but I'd like to welcome everyone to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Leave a like if you like the review that's gonna come up. And yeah, man, I'm excited. So this channel is mostly gonna be about hip-hop reviews, given the name, This Is Hip Hop. So I'm thinking on Mondays, we do Mixtape Mondays. So if you do watch this video, to any of the 5 people watching, want to see me review a mixtape, drop which mixtape, off DatPiff or whatever. Drop it in the comments and let me know what you want to see. But yeah, let's get right into my first review. Welcome to the launch, Nasir. All right, quick jump cut later. We're back. My legs are now folded. Thank you for noticing. All right, and if I'm looking down, I got some notes down here. So, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Not used to this yet. So it seems like ever since Illmatic came out in 1994, fans of Nas have been impatiently waiting for him to pen another classic. But I've been asking myself, what exactly am I waiting for? What is a new Nas classic? What does that even mean? So now I wasn't even born when Nas debuted with Illmatic back in 1994. But as a lover of hip hop, I've listened to it plenty of times and went back again before Nasir dropped to kind of get a feeling for what I should be trying to compare it to. But then I just started thinking, what if I'm already doing this album a disservice? Can we really compare a new Nas album back to Illmatic? Does that even make sense anymore? See, when Kanye announced that he was producing the new Nas album, I think myself included, but a lot of new hip hop fans who, love Kanye. Kanye's got classic albums. The production's always great. There's always something new to be listening to when it comes to, there's always something, new, experimental. Kanye's always experimenting with music, so it's always fresh when Kanye delivers an album. And a lot of current hip hop fans, especially after the release of Daytona and Ye and Kids See Ghosts, we're already hypothesizing, is this new Nas album, is this gonna be a classic? Is this the Nas album we've been waiting for? And those 3 albums were great. Personally, I love those 3 albums. I think Kanye and the production was great, but we're not here to talk about them. But, nevertheless, I was pretty excited for a new Nas album, especially one produced by Kanye. So Illmatic was a masterpiece when it came out. Evidenced most obviously by that, Source article that gave it 5 mics. And, that was even before it came out to the general public, so people were ready. This new guy, first album, it drops, it's a classic. How could this be? And you listen to it and you're like, damn, it's a classic. It depicted life in the ghetto in a poetic way that almost any other artist really couldn't do at the time. It was based on Nas's own personal experiences growing up in Queensridge and Queens and just New York in general, and extended to greater themes concerning inner city black youth. And for Nas, someone who people these days consider, to have some dry ass beats, there was some real hip hop legendary producers on this. DJ Premier, Pete Rock, Large Professor, Q-Tip, MC Search from Third Base. They made the production minimalistic but interesting enough to add that punch and ambiance of the city to this album that added to Nas's, undeniably effective and potent lyricism on that album, on Illmatic. And, the hooks on there, like on New York State of Mind, or And the World Is Yours. Almost forgot there for a second. But even, other tracks, and those are more accessible tracks, those are more mainstream tracks when it comes to Illmatic. But even all the other tracks on there, you could throw them on and it really entices you. It's minimalistic, Yeah, but I mean, it gets the point across, and Nas's lyricism just keeps you interested the whole time. I mean, you really, especially if you're someone who loves hip hop and you go back into the lyrics and you break some of the stuff down, you're like, man, this guy was, he's smart for being how young he was, and dropped out after the 8th grade, and you're like, damn, this guy made a classic real young, and here we are, 20 something years later, and we want another one. And so even though I might have not been able to personally relate to the topics on Illmatic, I mean, I wasn't even born before before Illmatic dropped, it could really stretch through time and have me listening to it in 2018, and you listen to it with other people, and no one's really gonna mind. No one's gonna be like, wow, this sounds super dated. I mean, maybe if all they listen to is like Pitbull or something, maybe that might be the case, but that's a testament to its not only its importance in the genre, but its overall production and structure from a time like the 90s, which very few albums have the ability to do. So Illmatic is a classic, but not necessarily something I'm expecting Nas to match on this upcoming release, Nasir. I mean, it's just a different time. Nas has new information, new perspectives, he's older, he's working with Kanye, and all these variables are far from the times of 1994 where Nas was growing up in Queensbridge, and had not saying he doesn't have first-hand experience anymore, he's just totally alien to the people of Queensbridge now. But you know what I'm saying, he's wiser, he's older, he's living a different life. And so I'm not expecting an Illmatic 2 necessarily. I'm interested in how he's reflecting on his fame since then, on the pressure that comes with why, I'm sure he knows other people want a classic from him. But no matter what, I think we can all agree that whenever Nas drops except for lately when he's been working with DJ Khaled and whatever, when Nas drops an album or a song, usually he wants to get a message across. He has a purpose for coming back into the booth. He wants to talk about something, and that's something he talks a lot about on this album. So given that all these changes have occurred in his life, what's Nas's purpose for coming out with an album with Kanye in 2018? And so without further ado, let's get into it. So the first track on the new album is Not For Radio, on which Nas makes a prophetic, God-like descent onto this heavenly Kanye beat. Ever since Nas debuted in 1994, he wasn't really an artist that got a lot of radio play, and on this track right here, Not For Radio, he's clearly addressing that. And we'll kind of come back to a few of the things he says on here when we get to the last track of the album, Simple Things. Given his track record, he's fine with that. He's the artist that there's many artists people look to when it comes for conscious hip-hop, but he's the artist for many people. He's just elusive. He has this classic album. Is he going to make it back? And people are looking for that conscious side of him. They want to see him spit bars and, talk about what's going on in the world and how it affects us. And so right here, he's making that statement. He comes with declarative statements. His lyrics, are on point. So right off the bat, he's setting the tone for the album by letting us know and declaring that he's proud of the fact that he doesn't get radio play, and this is why, and you should listen. And he's going to continue down that path, even though he does have Kanye as a producer who does get radio play and could, definitely give Nas a bunch of songs that could get Nas on the radio. But, that's not his intention, and he's stating it right here at the beginning. So I think that's important, to interpret the rest of the album. And, on this track, Kanye, I think, does a really good job with giving people, people have been waiting for so long for something, like this to happen, and he hits you right away with the prophet is back kind of beat. It almost makes you want to go to church if Nas was like the priest or something. And Kanye and Mike Dean, I think, are really able to get that feeling of the listener that the listeners had for so long across in this beat. And it sounds awesome, and that ticking snare or whatever that, I don't really know what that is. But midway through his first verse really gets you, amped to listen to the rest of it. It's picking up, okay, we're ready, we're here to go. 070 Shake features on this, on the chorus, and I think she does a really great job putting some added confidence to the defiant tone of Nas's lyrics. And you know, Diddy's on here. At first I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's a little, not weird, but it's kind of weird. I don't know. But he just kind of serves as a hype man during Nas's verses, and it doesn't really take away, and it doesn't detract from the track at all, really. It doesn't add too much. I mean, I don't know. I feel like this song is such a return, such a confident song, such a defiant song. Just clearly trying to articulate many messages too, to kind of, you know, perk up your ears and be aware of some things. And I think, you know, Diddy on here kind of hyping up Nas, you know, kind of works. But let's just say if they took Diddy out, I mean, you know, very few people would probably notice. But I mean, yeah, it's decent. Anyway, strong start on this album. So the second track on this album is Cop Shot the Kid, and you'll definitely remember the name of this song because the sample from Slick Rick's Bedtime Story, his debut album in 1988, serves as the backbone for this thing. And the track, personally, I think has a serious groove for how serious the subject matter is. I mean, which isn't a bad thing. It gets you listening. It transitions into this almost robotic version of the sample for the chorus, brought on by these screeches. I don't know if it's Kanye screeching or something. It's very reminiscent of the Ye album from the song, I Thought About Killing You. The roboticness is there to make you think like it keeps happening. I mean, this being unarmed black men being shot in America by the police. And it's weird because on this verse, I actually think Kanye does a better job with gripping and callous lines like, who do we call to report a crime if 911 is doing the drive-by? That's a really gripping, just in-your-face line. I mean, it really gets you thinking about, the topic, and it's just, it's not hidden behind any walls, it's just right there, but it still has that power to it. And for someone like Nas to be on a track like this and talking about police brutality, I think he does a good job. I'm not really knocking his verse, but Eminem touched on this. Like, there's artists that are touching on this, and you'd think when Nas came out with his verse for a song about police brutality, it would just be a little more. And then the chorus, it's so robotic, and then it just kind of goes into Kanye's verse, and it's just kind of over. Sitting here kind of thinking, is this song basically being pessimistic about the situation, that this is just happening? I mean, there's no switch up in the beat. There's no lead into some other part where, Nas kind of breaks it down even further or really speaks on it a little bit more. It's police brutality, it's Nas, it's Kanye, and we get less than 3 minutes, and I'm more impressed by Kanye. And I don't know, it's just a little bit weird to me. And I just think it could have, they could have switched the beat up and did something a little more with this track. Definitely not a bad song, but, could have gone somewhere else. Could have been a little bit better. Moving on into the third track, White Label. I was starting to question whether there's a possibility of this album being a classic or not at this point. I'm going to be honest with you. Because out of all the tracks on this album, I think White Label is just the weakest track there is on here. The production, I think Kanye did a really good job with the production. It's luxurious in this, like, Roman Empire sort of way. I don't really know how to explain it better than that. On here, Nas talks about his own success, what made him, what he's done for hip-hop. See, on a longer album, I think this would have made sense. To just have that song, flexing a little bit, getting the point across. But on a 7-track album, man, he delivers this bar like, he's laying on these beds, or he's laying on his bed, and it's expensive, but he still feels that urge to come out and write something. And he gives us this 7-track album. Oh, it's gonna be so concise, and it's gonna be powerful. And then we're talking about, tuna salad. That's just a little bit disappointing to me, honestly. And it's nothing, it's nothing like serious. It just seems like filler. You know what I mean? I feel like down the line, when people go back and revisit this album, because I do think people will revisit this album, more so than probably most other Nas albums besides like Illmatic. But I feel like when they go back to listen to this album, they're just gonna skip right through this song. I mean, he's saying that he has something to write about, and then you put him on a track, and it's 2 verses, and it's like, okay, like, where's the rest? You know what I mean? It's just short, and it's not just because it's short, it's just disappointing that it didn't go anywhere. Moving on to the next track, it's Bonjour. I think Bonjour is a killer track. It features the world famous Tony Williams, whose interspersed vocals within Nas's verses and in the chorus are wonderful, and they complement that like Parisian luxury stylesque production of the song that Kanye did. And Nas seems angry as he raps about the desires that even he falls victim to, which is a good fit for the theme of the song. The song really makes you feel like you're sitting in like a coffee house or something in Paris, you know, overlooking the city, thinking about the deadly desires of the world, while also keeping in mind that, you know, it's a beautiful place if you can keep, you know, if you have that restraint, if you can keep yourself in check. Everything, the song, makes its way onto this album as the longest track, sitting halfway to 8 minutes. And I think it's really fitting that Kanye is featured on the verse on this song because it brings me back to Ye's album when he was talking about being able to have, you know, any woman he wants, but he still might want to have him a Stormy Daniels, you know, just talking about desire and the things that affect, you know, you universally, that affect us, reaching certain levels, but still being, you know, beholden to just human desires. You know, Nas echoes that on this album when he writes, "Some people have everything they probably ever wanted in life and still never have enough." There's one thing wrong about this track, I think, and that's just the vaccination line, which I think is just cringy to say the least. Honestly, look, I understand the point he's trying to make here, alright? Don't shit on me. Just yet. Alright? But whether he's anti-vax or whether he's describing, you know, a child's entrance into the world as just being, you know, unpleasurable, or, you know, the role of parents and how they should be more informed, or whatever it is, I feel like he could have just made a similar points on Cop Shot the Kid. You know, that could have just been more powerful than that. I mean, it's just so blatant, it's just so, like, I don't know. I think, like, years, even next year, like, people might be looking back on this track and just, like, want to skip that part. You know what I mean? I mean, he's entitled to his own opinion, obviously. It doesn't really matter to me that he said it. It's just, like, it's such a weird thing to put on this song. And as talented as, you know, a lyricist Nas is, it's just almost unbearable to listen to, in my opinion. But, you know, I made it through. Don't worry, guys. Adam and Eve is really a highlight on this album for me. It's like a cautionary tale, or the way I interpret it is like a cautionary tale about, you know, trying to make something about yourself, but still wanting to stay close to the people or the things, addictions or whatever they might be, that keep you stagnant and away from achieving your goals. I mean, everything about this track is honestly just beautiful. And Nas's flow is great. The production is just amazing. I mean, this is probably the most accessible song off of this album. I mean, it's gonna get the most people to listen to this. Again, with this coffee house thing, you know, there's this chopped piano sample. The Dream has a short chorus, and it's so nice that it's short because, I mean, Nas's verse is so great, his flow is great, it's punchy, the cadence is nice. You know, it's just impactful, and the short chorus by The Dream, you want another Nas verse, so the chorus just, it's such a direct message, it's a good message. You know, it gets you right back into what you love, and that's Nas's lyrical ability, and I think this song really shines on this album, and I think this is a song that people are gonna remember and that they're gonna put in their playlists. And one more thing about the Dream, you know, he sounds almost like a different person on this than he did in the tracks before this, and he does a really good job matching that chopped piano sample. It's like you put some lo-fi effect onto his voice or something, and it really just fits the vibe of this song. And Nas's writing is great. I really like the line, "Before I sat to eat at the table, it had leeches and traitors, cut the fat from the meat. Yeah, extract the weak, bon appetit." You know, what more is there that you can ask? So we're finally here at the end of this album, and right off the bat, on the song Simple Things, you know, it starts off with some of the best writing in this album, I think, and it cements Nas's perceived status as one of the greats, and the beat has this, like, ominous but serene quality to it, whatever, you know, instrument is making that sound in the background. Probably a flute or something. Flutes seem to be, you know, popular ever since Future came out with Mask Offs. You know, on here, Nas raps about, you know, how it's his place, his position in hip-hop to, you know, inform us. You know, not... that sounds weird, but, you know, give us information, give us new perspectives, and, you know, not to focus on just the beat, you know, stop being beat whores and listen to some of the lyrics. And I take this basically as a response to the fact that people critique Nas for having a dry ass beat selection. I think it kind of matters. I mean, like, man, if you want people to listen to your music, a good beat will help. There's no issues with that on this album, thankfully. And he ends this track on a really good note. He's talking about how he's blessed to have peace in his life and how he just wants the same for his kids, his family. The song itself has some flashes of modern production on here compared to the lo-fi, classy vibe of the rest of the album with these like 808 claps. I mean, the melody of this with that, you know, whatever instrument that is, that's beautiful, and like I just couldn't stop even listening to that. And then what Nas is talking about is great too. I mean, they really work well together, but then these weird 808 claps are going on, and I'm like, you know, I understand that they fit the rebellious message of the song, but honestly it's just a little bit awkward to me. It doesn't detract too much, but it's noticeable. Overall, Nasir is a great album. You know, it's really classy. There's these like wise men reflecting on their lives, sort of feeling the production, and I think Kanye made it a point that these 7 tracks were representative of like these 7 sins, and I think they did a pretty, you know, good job sticking to that. And I really like the approach in general that they took on this, because, you know, Nas is, you know, 20 plus years older than he was when he dropped Illmatic. And I think taking this universal approach and talking about how man, you know, and woman are tempted at a universal level as human beings was a smart way to kind of get around the I'm famous now, but, you know, I'm from this place, how do I resolve the two kind of dichotomy. And I think he did a really great job for the most part on this album. His wide vocabulary on this album really made me look some shit up, you know, especially with the foods, man. I'm like hungry now. He's like Rick Ross with the foods on this album. But I think, you know, it went over my head. It's gonna go over, you know, many listeners' heads, especially those from that young urban demographic he initially appealed to. You know, I think that really solidifies his perspective on this album, both reflecting on his current position that he finds himself in the world with, you know, dealing with the fame and the pressure that, you know, comes with it, and just these universal temptations of human existence, and the feeling to need to speak about the issues that are plaguing our society. I found some tracks like White Label and Cop Shot the Kid a little disappointing on here, but still, there's a lot, and I mean a lot, of meat on this album, and mixed with Kanye's production, I mean, man. But I think the rest of the tracks on this album, on this 7-track album, if that's what we're calling it these days, you know, they're gonna do a lot. I think people are gonna dig back into, you know, even casual listeners of hip-hop might be interested by songs like Adam and Eve or Everything. You know, I mean, the production is just beautiful on these things. It's something you can throw on and just get right into. And Nas really captivates you with some of the writing on here. And I think album's definitely not a detriment to Nas in any way. I think, you know, putting awkward moments aside, like White Label, like Cop Shot the Kid, that I think could have, you know, been fleshed out a little bit more, and those weird 808 claps on the last track here on Simple Thing. I think this album's a solid 8 out of 10 for Nas. And honestly, I think because Nas is known for having some dry-ass beats, you know, this and Illmatic are probably going to be some of his most remembered albums. I mean, the hype that Kanye was able to achieve surrounding this Nas drop is just unbelievable. I mean, I have friends that, I mean, they listen to hip-hop, but, you know, they're not super into it, but they were still like, man, Kanye's producing a Nas album, and, you know, they heard Nas being an awesome lyricist, and they, you know, were just interested. And I think for them, there's a chance that they might like it. So that's all I have to say. It is late at night right now. That is Nasir by Nas. A great album, worthy to be in his catalog, I think. Yeah, guys, so guys, girls, whatever you are, whoever you are, drop a comment below, start a dialogue. You know, let me know which track you like the most, which track you didn't like. Did you love all of them? Am I dumb? Am I wrong? Let me know what you think. Do it for the culture. And I'll see you next time. Mixtape Mondays. Let me know about a mixtape you want me to review.